Good afternoon, students. I welcome you all for the class. Today, we are going to continue the yesterday's topic, that is modes of transfer. So, yesterday we have seen two different modes, that is programmed IO and interrupt-driven IO. Interrupt-driven IO, we have seen till half portion of interrupt-driven IO. So today we'll be going to finish off this interrupt-driven IO, and we'll be going to start the another important topic in the second unit, that is DMA. So what is a DMA? What is the need of a DMA? What is a DMA controller? What is how the data is going to be transferred? What is the block diagram of DMA? Everything we are going to see in this today's session. So let me continue with this yesterday's topic, modes of transfer. I'll be revising you once again in order to brush up the things. Fine. So, modes of data transfer. So, there are three different modes of data transfer, as we all know. And the first one is programmed IO. The first one is programmed IO, as we have seen. So, what is a programmed IO? So, here uh, the processor is there and IO devices is there. Fine. So here there will be an interface. This is the CPU. So programmed IO, in the sense, if IO wants to contact with the memory, we have to uh, contact through the CPU only. So why we are going to keep a interface over here is, like, in order to match, CPU is an electronic device and IOs are electromechanical or electromagnetic devices. In order to have a synchronization, we are going to implement the interface. Fine. So here, what is the drawback in programmed IO is, every time CPU needs to check the interface whether any data is available on the data line. As we have seen the block diagram also, right? So CPU is keep on busy in checking instead of doing its own work. But we don't want to entertain that one. Why? Because we have to make the CPU as much busy as possible in order to have the performance to be at the peaks. Fine. But here, what is the CPU is doing is, like, instead of doing its task, it is keep on waiting unnecessarily, checking whether any request has came from the IO devices or not. So that is the drawback in the programmed IO. So in order to overcome that, we have gone for interrupt driven IO. So interrupt driven IO. What is an interrupt driven IO? In the sense, see this program. So see this diagram only. So interrupt driven in the sense, like, instead of CPU always keep on checking the interface, once when the IO request has received by the interface is going to interrupt the CPU, like a request has come. Then what the CPU is going to do is, it is going to store all the details and it will resume to that particular interrupt. Fine. After completing that interrupt, it will come back and do the normal task or normal execution. So this is the interrupt driven IO. So here, instead of CPU wasting its time unnecessarily, here the CPU is keep on busy doing its work. Fine. So this is the interrupt driven IO. So what is the drawback of this interrupt driven IO is, like, here the CPU is always busy in doing its work. So here it is not at all concentrating on the IO devices. So that is the drawback of the interrupt driven IO. And the drawback of both these two data transfer is, it cannot transfer bulk amount of data. That is the main drawback when we are going to talk with the programmed IO and the interrupt driven IO. So bulk amount of data is not going to be transferred when we are going to concern with the programmed IO and the interrupt driven IO. So in order to have the bulk amount of data transfer, we have another transfer mechanism called DMA. DMA is nothing but direct memory access. So this is the DMA. So here, when we are going to talk regarding this interrupt driven IO, so here, if one IO device is there, so it is okay. Like, we are going to do like this. What happens if several IO devices are there simultaneously? If they request the CPU, what it is happen, we'll be going to see today. Fine. So here, But what if multiple devices generate interrupts simultaneously? So previously what we have seen, so here the CPU is there, and here interface is there, and here IO devices are there. So if one IO device is there, there will be no problem. So only CPU will get only one interrupt. Likewise, if many interrupts, many IO devices are connected, so if they all give an interrupt at once to the CPU, what will happen? Interrupt the CPU all at once, what will happen? In that case, we have to decide which interrupt to be serviced first, either this interrupt or this one or this one. So this is X, Y, Z. These are the three devices. So which interrupt has to be serviced first? So in other words, what we can say is we have to set the priority for the interrupts. So priority in the sense like which is most important. Suppose this y task is most important, so that we'll be going to allocate a first priority to this one, and x is going to have second priority and z is going to have third priority. So if all the interrupts has come simultaneously, so we'll be going to act according to the priority. So based on the priority, the CPU is going to attend the interrupts. As Y device is having the highest priority, first the CPU will attend this interrupt, and then CPU will attend this interrupt, and last the CPU is going to attend this interrupt. So this is how we'll be going to find the solution when we are going to have multiple interrupts simultaneously at a time. So here the concept of defining the priority among devices so as to know which one is to be serviced first in case of multiple requests is called priority interrupt system. So this method we call it as an priority interrupt system. This priority interrupt system could be done in two ways. The first method is hardware software method, and second method is hardware method. So in software method we calling it as a polling, and in hardware method we call it as a daisy chaining. I'll be going to repeat it again. Here when interrupts came simultaneously, so we are going to attend those requests by making use of priority. So based on the priority, the CPU is going to attend to the request. So this mechanism, we call it as a priority interrupt system. So this priority interrupt system can be done in two ways. Either we can done in software method or either we can done in hardware method. If we are going to do it in a software method, we call a mechanism called polling. If you are doing it in a hardware method, we are going to have a one mechanism called daisy chaining. So first we will be going to look after software method. So here, when we are going to talk regarding the software method, that is polling. So here, in this method, all interrupts are serviced by branching to the same service program. Here, the program then checks with each device if it is the one generating the interrupt. So here, what I have said is the problem is when we are going to have simultaneous interrupts, when we are going to have many interrupts. So if all these interrupts came simultaneously, what the CPU is going to do is it is going to check for each and every interrupt which has sent the interrupt signal. So this order of checking is determined by the priority. So as I have said, suppose this is having the first priority, this is having second priority, this is having third priority, and this one is having fourth priority. So the CPU will check first this one as it is having the first priority. It will check whether this one has sent the request or not. No, this has not sent. Next, it will check the second one. If it has sent the request, it will be going to attend this one. Next, it will be going to check the third one. Like that, it will be going to check the fourth one. If they send the request, it will be attending. If not, they have not sending the request. So based on the priority, it is keep on checking. So here, the device is checked by generating the interrupt, another service program called which works specifically for the particular device. So that is the main drawback over here. Here the disadvantage of this method is it is very slow. Why? Because each and every interrupt has to be checked whether it has been sent or not. So it has to be checked. So this is called polling method. So which one polls, which device polls? So we have to check for each and every device. Which device polls, that service we are going to request. But this method is very slow. So in order to overcome this drawback, we have gone for the hardware method, which is known as daisy chaining. So daisy chaining in the sense, here this method involves connecting of all devices that can request an interrupt in a serial manner. So here you have to make note of this. They are connected in a serial manner. This configuration is governed by the priority of the devices. How the devices are connected? According to the priority. First device, first priority, next second priority, next third, next fourth, like that. The devices are connected serially one after another. The device with the highest priority is followed by the is placed in first, followed by the second higher priority levels. So here I'll be going to say the working of this mm, daisy chaining method. Here, when there is an interrupt request line, which is common to all the devices that goes to the CPU, fine. Here, the interrupt request line. So I'll be going to show it in the diagram. So what is that interrupt request line and how it is going to be useful? We will be going to show by taking this diagram, fine. So here there is an interrupt request line. Here you can see this interrupt request line. This interrupt request line is connected to first device, it is connected to second device, it is connected to third device. Here, which device wants to interrupt the CPU, that device can send the interrupt to through this line to this interrupt. So INT is nothing but interrupt. So this interrupt will be taking the charge of all these things. So which device is going to hold the interrupt, that it is going to be governed by the interrupt signal. So when no interrupts are pending, this line is in high state. So if there are no interrupts, it is in high state. That means it is not going to accept anything. But if any one of the devices raises an interrupt, it places the interrupt request line in the low state. Fine. So high state in the sense 1, low state in the sense 0. Suppose if P2 wants to send the interrupt, so this line is going to be indicated in one state, and remaining P1 and P3 is going to be remain in the 0 state. Fine. So as it is the high state, so the CPU acknowledges this interrupt signal from the line and enables the interrupt acknowledge line. So here what it is going to do? Here it is going to uh, here this interrupt is going to acknowledge by the CPU by sending this interrupt acknowledgement. So this interrupt is it here it will say that second device interrupted. So the second device interrupted. Now CPU will what it will be going to tell is it is going to acknowledge to the second device through the PO terminal, P out terminal. It going to acknowledge to the this second device 2. So the signal is received at the P1. So here this acknowledgement signal here INTAC interrupt acknowledgement signal is received at the P1. Here P1 is the input and P0 is the output. So if the device has not requested the interrupt, if this device has requested interrupt, no, why? Because it is 0. So it will transfer the signal to the second device. If device has requested the signal, yes, P2 has requested the signal. So then what it will be going to do is it is going to activate this VAD line, like VAD line. Fine. It is going to activate this VAD line. So if the device has not requested the interrupt, like it passes the signal to other interrupts. If the device has really sent the signal, that is this device 2 has sent the signal. So here this vector address 2 line is going to be activated. So and this is going to be given to the again back to the CPU, so which address. So the device consumes the acknowledgement signal and block its further use by placing 0 at set PO. So here P out in the sense here it is going to place 0. 0 in the sense it will not going to transfer to the another one. Here P naught it will send one signal. Why? Because here this device is not attempted for interrupt. So that's why it is going to send the one signal as the output, and this one is going to given to the device 2. As this device 2 has generated the request, it will send 0 as the output. Why? Because this is the one which generated the request. So the device then proceeds to place the interrupt vector address onto the data bus of the CPU. So here this vector address is going to be placed on the data bus. Here data bus will be there in the CPU, data bus will be there. So it is going to place that address on the and that data bus of the CPU. Now the device puts its interrupt request signal in high state to indicate its interrupt has been taken care of. So here this signal is going to be high, that it indicates that the interrupt is going to be taken care of. This is how the daisy chaining method is going to be working. The CPU need not check which device has polled or which device has polled. Here all the devices are connected serially. Which device wants to poll an interrupt, that is going to make the line in a high state. High state in the sense 1. If suppose 3 want to poll and interrupt, its signals is going to be 1 and remaining all other will be 0. So this is going to be sent to the INT signal. So this INT signal is received by the CPU. It has to acknowledge to the particular third device. Acknowledgement in the sense I have received your interrupt. So it will send one signal to the device 1. So device 1 has requested for interrupt. No, it will send the output as 1 over here. This output 1 is given to the device to P1. Device to P1 has requested. No, it has sent 1 as an output. This one is going to be given to the device 3. Device 3 has sent the signal. Yes, yes. It has generated an interrupt. So this device 3 vector address is going to be placed in the data bus of the CPU, so that it is going to interrupt acknowledgement is going to be in high, indicate that the acknowledgement have been taken care of. This is the hardware method of daisy chaining. So interrupt driven IO. In software method, we have a polling method. A polling method is very slow. Why? Because the CPU has to check each and every device which has polled the interrupt. But when it comes to the hardware method, we call it as a daisy chaining method. As the name itself indicates, it is going to be a chain like format, so that which device has pulled the interrupt, it is going to make the line high and the CPU will be taking care of that. So this is how the interrupt driven IO is going to be done. And next, another important concept is direct memory access. So before going to that directly going to the theory part, let me give you an information regarding this direct memory access. So direct memory access. So here for each and everything we need a three devices. That one is IO device and next one is memory and the next one is CPU. If IO device want to do any read or any write operation, first it will be going to contact the CPU. This is the first cycle. In the first cycle, it is going to contact the CPU and the CPU will be going to do that action. This is the second cycle. Fine. If if any IO operation has to be done, we need two cycles compulsorily. So for each and every operation, we need two cycles compulsorily. Suppose if this memory and IO device are contacting, then how many cycles we need? We need only one cycle. So this part we call it as a DMA. So We are keeping the CPU aside and we are making this IO device directly contacting the memory without the intervention of CPU. That we call it as a direct memory access. As the name itself indicates, directly this IO devices or peripheral devices, they are going to access directly the memory without the help of CPU. So this is the direct memory access. So direct memory access is a mode of data transfer between the memory and the IO devices, right? So three modes are programmed IO, interrupt driven IO, and DMA. So what is the drawback between the for the programmed IO and interrupt driven IO? They can't transfer bulk amount of data. But the advantage of DMA is DMA can transfer bulk amount of data between the memory and the IO devices without the involvement of the processor. So that is how the DMA is more useful. So as we already know, this programmed IO and interrupt driven IO are not useful to transfer large amount of data. So that's why the DMA controller completes the task at a faster rate and also effective for transfer of large block of data. So here the DMA controller transfers the data in three modes. So DMA is direct memory access. So what is a DMA controller? In the sense, the DMA controller used to look after all the access parts of the DMA. So that is the controller, DMA controller. Here the task is going to be done by the DMA controller only. So thus DMA controller transfers the data in three modes. The first one is burst mode, cycle stealing mode, and transparent mode. So what do you mean by a burst mode? Here, as I have said you before, we are not going to involve a CPU over here. So CPU will be there, fine, and memory will be there. CPU, memory, and here IO devices are there. So what the thing we are going to do is, if we want to transfer any information to memory, what we are going to do here, we will be going to send a signal to CPU, interrupt to CPU, that like in order to transfer any data from IO to memory or memory to IO, we need buses, system bus we need. So what do you mean by a system bus? System bus is a combination of address bus, data bus, and control bus. Totally these three we call it as a system bus. So in order to transfer the data from IO to memory, we need a system bus. But now the system bus is with the CPU. The system bus is with the CPU. We can't transfer without the system bus. So what the IO is going to do is, it is going to send an interrupt signal to the CPU. What the interrupt signal? I want to transfer a bulk amount of data to the memory. So you release the buses. You release the system bus so that I can take charge of the system bus and I'll be going to do my work. So then what the CPU is going to do is, the CPU is going to release the system bus by acknowledging to the IO. Okay, I'm releasing my system bus. You take care of system bus and you transfer the data. So now this is the CPU has released the system bus. Now the system bus is with the IO. Then what the IO will do is, it will transfer the data, bulk amount of data, by making use of address bus and data bus and the control bus to the memory unit. After releasing the again, it will be going to release those buses and those buses will be hand over by the CPU. So this is the procedure, or this is the working it will be going to done. So see here, so burst mode in the sense, here burst mode in the sense, once the DMA controller gains the charge of system bus in the sense address bus, data bus, and the control bus, then it releases the system bus only after the completion of data transfer. Here once, here what is the burst mode in the sense, here once DMA has got the system bus, until unless full completion of the work, it will not release the system bus. Fine, it will not release the system bus. So that is the burst mode. Cycle stealing mode is, so here the DMA controller forces the CPU to stop its operation and to give the control over the buses for a short term, not for the long term. Full completion, it won't wait for a short term. So after the transfer of every byte, see here this sentence is important. After the transfer of every byte, the DMA is going to release the buses to the CPU, and again it is going to gain the access from the CPU. So for each and every byte, it is going to release and it is going to take the access. So that is the DMA steals the clock cycle for transferring every byte. So that's the reason why we call it as a cycle stealing. So here for each and every byte, the DMA is used to release the give the bus to the CPU. And for the next clock cycle, again it is going to ask system bus from the CPU. So releasing the CPU and giving requesting the CPU. So that whole thing we call it as a cycle stealing. But when it is the transfer mode, so here the DMA controller takes the charge if the CPU is free. If the CPU does not want to do any of the thing, then only the CPU buses can be given to the DMA. So these are the three different modes of transfer. DMA controller transfers the data in three different modes. So burst mode in the sense, once DMA has gained control over all the buses, it will not release the buses until unless it completes its whole task. So after completion of whole task only, it will release the bus. That is the burst transfer. Next one is cycle stealing. So once the DMA has taken the bus system bus from the CPU, it will transfer 1 byte of data. After transferring 1 byte of data, it again gives back the system bus to the CPU, and again it is going to take the system bus from the CPU. It will transfer 1 byte of data and again it will release, like this process continuing. What is this is the DMA is stealing the clock pulses of the CPU. So that's the reason we call it as a cycle stealing. And last one is the transparent mode. Here once the when the DMA is going to get the system, in the sense, if the processor does not want the system bus, then only the system bus is going to give to the DMA. So these are the three different data transfers in DMA controller. So here DMA controller, this is the DMA controller and it's working. So this is the block diagram of the DMA controller. Fine. So here uh, in this block diagram, this DMA controller. So what I have said, DMA controller is a hardware unit that allows IO devices to access the memory without the participation of the processor. So that is the DMA controller working. So how it is going to work is, here this is DMA controller, HLDA in the sense hold acknowledgement. HLD in the sense hold. Here MRW in the sense memory read. Here IOW in the sense IO read, input output read, write operation, read and write. So IOW in the sense write and read. Here DRQ. So DRQ in the sense DMA request, DMA acknowledgement. DRQ in the sense DMA request and DMA acknowledgement. Now see the working of this. So here, whenever an IO device, this is the IO device, right? So whenever this IO device wants to transfer the data to or from the memory, like here it is bidirectional. If you have observed this, it is this symbol is bidirectional. Why bidirectional? In the sense, from IO devices to memory, or from memory to IO devices. Got it? So that's why this bus is bidirectional. So whenever IO device wants to transfer the data to the memory or from the memory, what it is going to do is it is going to send DRQ to the DMA controller. So this DRQ signal is there na DMA request. That means it is asking permission for the DMA controller that I want to transfer bulk amount of data. So DRQ request is sent to the DMA controller. What the DMA controller will do is it is going to accept this request by giving acknowledgement of DACK. So DMA controller will give the acknowledgement. That means I have received your request, like that it is acknowledging the acknowledging the IO devices. Later on, so here DMA controller accepts the DK and it is ask the CPU. Here this DMA controller, what it is going to do is it will be going to ask the CPU to hold for some time for a few clock pulses by sending this hold request. After receiving this hold request by the processor, so it is going to give an acknowledgement to the DMA controller that I have received your request, that is hold request I have received, and it is going to give acknowledgement through HLDA, that is hold acknowledgement. So here the DMA controller, after receiving this hold acknowledgement, the DMA controller acknowledges the IO device DACK that the data transfer can be performed. Here it is going to acknowledge to this IO device that now you can transfer the data. So now what it is going to do is the DMA controller is going to take the charge of the system bus and transfer the data to or from the main memory. So here by making use of this line, it is going to transfer the data to or from the memory. So memory read or memory write operations can be done. Fine. When the data transfer is accomplished, the DMA, what it is going to do, the DMA raises an interrupt to know the processor that the task has been completed. So it is going to give an interrupt signal to the processor that my task has been completed or my task has been completed. Now the processor is going to take the control over the system bus and it is going to do its work again. So this is how the DMA controller is going to be done. Right? Once I'm repeating you, if IO device wants to transfer the data to the memory or from the memory, first part is it is going to send a DRQ signal to the DMA controller. So DMA controller, after receiving this DRQ signal, it will be going to acknowledge that I have received your signal. Then DMA controller, what it is going to do, it is going to send a request, hold a request to the processor. You hold for some time. I need to transfer some amount of data. So then processor, what it is going to do after receiving this hold request, it is going to send an acknowledgement signal to the DMA controller that I have received your hold signal, a hold request. I am releasing my buses. Now you take care of the buses. Then DMA controller again acknowledges the IO devices that you can transfer the bulk amount of data uh, from IO device to the memory. So with the help of this DMA controller, this IO device is going to transfer the data to the memory or from memory to the IO devices. After the task has been completed, what this DMA controller is going to do is it is going to send an interrupt signal to the CPU. So after receiving the interrupt signal, the CPU is going to take charge over the buses and it is going to proceed its further action. So this is how the DMA controller is going to be working. And this is the working that what I have said you. Next one is this is the block diagram of DMA. So normally a previous block diagram is the DMA controller and this is the block diagram for the DMA. So whenever a process here or here this is a CPU or a processor, fine. So here, whenever a process is required to read or write a block of data, or else if he wants to transfer a block of data, what it is going to do is it instruct the DMA controller by sending the following information. First, what information it is going to do to the give to the CPU is, the first information is whether the data has to be write to the memory or read from the memory. So first one is write or read from memory. So this is the information first it is going to ask. Where the data block has no has to be written in the memory. Next, DMA controller stores this in the address register. So here the first information is whether the data has to be read or the data has to be write from the memory, or the data has to be written to the memory. So it passes this information through which signal? Through read and write signal of this control logic. So here the read and write signals are there na. If you want to read, this signal is going to be highlighted. If it wants to write, this signal is going to be highlighted. So by making use of this read and write lines, it is going to transfer the data to the memory or from the memory. Next, uh, after this, the processor will also provides the starting address. So why we need the starting address? In the sense, from where you have to transfer that block of data, or else where that block of data has been resided in the memory. So the DMA controller stores that address, that starting address in which register? Here we are going to have the address register is there na. So in this address register, it is going to store the starting address. Store starting address. Fine. That is the purpose of the address register, from where that block of memory has to be read or where the block of memory has to be write. The DMA controller stores that in the address register. It is also called as starting address register, or normally we can call it as an address register. Here the process also sends the word count. So here word count we can also call it as a data count. Data count or word count. Word count in the sense how many words are to be read or written to the memory or from the memory. Word count specifies how many words, how many words read or write to the memory or from the memory. So that is the purpose of the word count. It stores this instruction in this word count register. Here this word count register is there now. It stores that information in the word count register. And this word count we can also call it as a data count register. Fine, word count or data count register we can call it as. So this is the block diagram of the DMA. Here this DMA data count is used to store how many number of words or how much number of data has to be transferred from to our memory. Data register, that data is going to be stored. Address register, CPU is going to specify the starting address. That address we are going to store it in the address register. Here the control logic is used to read or write the data from to or in the memory. Interrupt signal is going to interrupt the CPU, request to DMA and request acknowledgement from DMA to the CPU. So all these things are going to be done in the DMA block diagram, right? So this is the working. Whenever a processor is requested to read or write a block of data, it instructs the DMA controller by sending the following information. First of all, which information it is sending? So whether the data has to be read from the memory or data has to be written into the memory, that information is going to be sent. So through which lines it is going to be sent? Through read or write control lines it is going to be sent. And next, which information? The processor also provides the starting address of block of data in the memory, from where that block of memory has to be read or the block as a memory has to be write. So that is going to be given. That information also is going to be given. So this information is stored in the address register. This we also call it as a starting address register. Fine. And next, The processor which sends the third information is, it also sends the word count, that is how many words we have to transfer. It stores that information in the data count or word count register. This is how we are going to have the DMA block diagram. This is the DMA block diagram, and this is the DMA controller block diagram and it's working. And these are the three modes of data transfer, that is the burst mode, cycle stealing mode, and transparent mode. And previously is the interrupt driven IO software method, which is a polling, and hardware method, which is a daisy chaining. And that's all for today's class, students. And with this you have completed your modes of transfer, different modes of transfer. So in the next class we'll be going to see the further topics. Thank you all, students. Have a great day.